much for joining us. This is Bruce. Ashlyn's not with me today, but excited to have another episode of the Life Report. Today, we have a special guest with Meredith Hall, who's joining us to tell us more about her story and Thrive Women's Clinic here in Dallas. And right on the front page of their website, it says, you have plans, pregnancy wasn't one of them, but you have the power to choose, find freedom, and pursue your dreams and goals. And so I'm excited to hear from what Meredith has to say and share about destigmatizing unexpected pregnancies and how women who choose life for their children can still pursue their dreams and goals. So without further ado, welcome Meredith, and thanks for joining us.
Hey Bruce, I'm so glad to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, would you take just a minute and share about yourself and how you ended up at Thrive?
I'd love to. That is actually a really favorite story of mine to tell, so I'm glad you asked. So I'd actually, for a while, volunteered, donated to Thrive, been a part of their events for many years, but I wanted to do more. So that's kind of where this all started. And I had been a stay-at-home mom for quite some time and decided that it was time to get back into nursing. So history of nursing, I was a NICU nurse right out of school, did some pediatrics, things like that, but stayed at home with my kids. And lo and behold, a good Watermark friend of mine called and said, hey, guess what? The Thrive Women's Clinic director, the nursing director, is stepping down. And she had been there for 20 years, so it's a really big deal. And she said, I think you should go for it. I think this would be a good fit for you. And it just really stirred I kind of got excited. I was like, really? Because I'd always been interested in jumping in with Thrive and in the pro-life initiative in general. And so sure enough, I called them and the position had been filled. And it was kind of like one of those things like, oh, bummer. Like, would I wait too long? I mean, really? Like, I really was excited about it. And so the girl told me the position had been filled, and I got off the phone, and I really heard the Lord say to me, or tell me, not audibly, but in my heart and mind, don't worry, it's going to fall through. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really think twice about it. Just, it's, the Lord, and I love when he tells me sweet things, but about 3 weeks later, I'm at home and I'm still like, Lord, where do you want me? Where do you want me to use my gifts and my nursing skills? And I get a call, and it's Kay Morton. And she starts talking to me about just what's going on at Thrive, and that would I be interested, because the same girl that told me about the position that she knows went back and said, have you tried calling Meredith Hall? So she calls me, and I'm kind of confused because the position had been filled, and she goes, oh gosh, that girl decided to go into full-time ministry at her church, and she resigned yesterday.
Wow.
And it was pretty amazing, and we both started crying, and it was evident. This is where God wanted me, and so that's how I ended up at Thrive.
That's awesome. What a wild story. And you've been at Watermark for a while, right? I mean, you've been around.
The start, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you said that you started in nursing. Would you describe what kind of education you got around kind of the pro-life, I guess, apologetics or information or anything that like sort of said, hey, to you as somebody who is learning to become a nurse in college, and then, as a NICU nurse and all those kinds of things, what kind of conversations were happening in the medical community, medical college, and what kind of education you got around that? So
I went to, first of all, my involvement in the pro-life and my education in the pro-life ministry started when I was in high school. So my family was really a part in St. Louis, Missouri, with Hands Across St. Louis. So we started there, and my church was really involved. So just being a believer, knowing the value of life and pregnancy, that's kind of started young. And then went to Baylor University, got my degree in nursing. And, I would say, honestly, if I could look back, there is not, other than like fetal development and them teaching you in nursing school what happens in utero, there wasn't much talk in college in the medical field about abortion and what was involved in that. And I don't know if that was just the times or if that was just something that wasn't discussed, if we were just given medical facts about what's going on inside. And then I would say it was shortly after that, being involved just in different churches. So Northwest Bible was one, and then Watermark, really started to educate myself more on the pro-life ministry. So there's a really great book by Randy Alcorn. And so I read that about like why pro-life. And that I would say is one of the best books that you could read to really educate yourself and give yourself some solid knowledge on why we are pro-life, not just the medical side to it, but also the spiritual and how God views life inside the womb. So started there, and I would advise people to start there as well. And, you know, the internet wasn't around, so I'm going to date myself here, when I first started getting plugged in with the pro-life, but my husband and I actually attended back when Thrive was called Dallas Pregnancy Resource Center. We went to a Natalie Grant concert, and they did a lot to educate us in that concert on the value of life. So it really was just getting plugged in with Thrive, with the Pregnancy Center. Watermark wasn't quite on that bandwagon yet, but a lot of the people we were talking to in the church had already been a part of that. Mm-hmm. So that really was, but I would say at the start, I wasn't getting a lot of medical until probably about 10 years ago. That's when, you know, you started researching stuff on the internet, people started putting things out there, and getting more involved.
Let's talk about Thrive real quick. Just what services do y'all offer? You know, when somebody's coming in, what are they receiving?
All of our medical services are provided by registered nurses or OB-GYNs or PAs. And so we have a team of 8 volunteer OB-GYNs, a team of 8 nurses, and then we have about 16 to 20 medical professionals that volunteer their time. And so they come in and they're going to speak with a medical provider, someone with a background in the health field. They're going to do medical grade pregnancy tests, which is really important because the pregnancy tests that are on the market are faulty. You'd be surprised how faulty they are. So they're going to receive that. And then probably the most amazing thing they're going to receive is sonograms. So that's going to be huge. And then they also get a ton of medical referrals. So we have a whole list of doctors we refer to. So it's really important that these women are getting the health care and the prenatal care that they need. And so we want to get them into a doctor that is going to support them and to support the pro-life decision that they've just made. So referrals are really important. We also we walk them through Medicaid. So we have women that really need Medicaid, and to get on track with their prenatal care, they have to get their proof of pregnancy, and they have to do that through a clinic or some kind of medical provider. So we do provide the proof of pregnancy. Okay. We also give them full bottles of vitamins. We walk them through how to care for themselves in pregnancy. So we're going to talk to them about warning signs, how to take care of themselves, their health, their nutrition, exercise. It's a lot of education that they're going to get. And then we do offer them parenting classes and life classes. So we'll have relationship classes. You'll have a mom and dad that'll come in and, you know, they've never really thought about, oh, hey, marriage first, right? So it's just really good to walk them through, hey, what's the benefits of your relationship and how that impacts your child? And how can you love her well in this time while she's pregnant? So there's those life classes. There's also stuff like writing a resume, handling your finances. And then most of them choose the parenting classes because it's stuff they've never heard before. They weren't raised that way. And so it's really sweet stuff.
Pretty holistic. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. Holistic.
And what I love is that everyone who supports us, it allows everything to be at no cost to that client. So they're coming in, they're getting those classes, and then when they take the classes, they get to go shopping in the store that has everything baby you can imagine. And so they're getting diapers, and they're getting clothes or a bouncy seat. They get pack and plays, just everything they can think of. And so the more classes they take, the more quote Thrive dollars they're going to get. And so it just helps them to feel like they're well cared for. And I think that's one of the main reasons I love working for Thrive is it's not just, hey, save the life of that baby and you're gone. We really, really care about the mom. And then we also have a men's program. So when that dad comes in the door, he's going to be able to talk to another man, another dad, and really walk him through what does it look like to be a dad.
I mean, when I get the impression of like what a pregnancy resource center clinic does, like I have in my mind, like this woman walks in, she's just completely distraught. Y'all come and just kind of wrap her up in your arms and you solve all her problems in like 30 minutes. But I'm sure that's not how it works. And so what is like a typical visit into your clinic like, and like what typically happens? How many women choose abortion even though they come into the clinic? How many choose life? Like what's the timetable? Give us some idea of kind of on the ground, what's it actually look like?
First of all, anytime anyone would like to just take a tour of Thrive and really embrace the process of what these women go through, what these men go through, I really encourage them to call us, because we love to welcome you in and let you know what that process looks like in person. But really, we do. You just said they come in, you hug them, and we do. We try to. we love hugging our women with their permission, of course. But our clients come in and they just kind of sign some brief paperwork, you know, the good old HIPAA compliance stuff. And then they meet with an advocate. And these are, our advocates are trained lay counselors. And so, and most of them are our volunteers. Those are the women on our front lines that have been trained to talk to these women, and they love these women well. And so our advocates walk the woman through and meet with her in a nice quiet room. And that's where she fills out a decision aid. And that really allows her to just slow down the train, right? So most of our women call us, and the night before or that morning, they got a positive pregnancy test at home. The fear is right there. They're scared. They don't know what they're going to do. Their minds are racing. And so they fill out this decision aid, and the advocate just walks them through that. It's a time for this woman to be in a quiet place where she can just process through every thought that has gone through her head since she found out she was pregnant. And that is huge. And the process usually takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. It depends on the pregnant woman and how talkative she is or how willing she is to open up. And then the women also hear the gospel. Again, we are all about saving babies. But if we can be the messengers of Christ's love and show them who Jesus is, we're not just saving that baby, we're saving that woman for life. And she's going to take that back to her community. And so it's so important that she hears the gospel. So our clients also fill out a medical history, and that's for the nurse. So while she's meeting with the advocate, the nurse is running her pregnancy test to see if it's positive. And then after that meeting, if she has a positive pregnancy test, the nurse goes and gets her, takes her to the clinic, does vital signs, walks through her medical history. It's really important that we know everything going on with that woman, what medication she's on. Is she doing drugs? Is she homeless? Is she, like, it's the whole person. And so, has she had an abortion before? Is this her first pregnancy? All of those things play into our care for these women. And so we take her in. We do talk to her a little bit in the clinic about, hey, what are your biggest concerns right now? There is something about coming into the clinic and talking with a nurse that if there wasn't total honesty and with the advocate, that disappears. And we're finding out things about them that they have not told anyone else. So in the clinic, she will get her sonogram. And I will say this is the most impactful thing that she's going to do. Other than meeting the Lord for the first time, this is where God reveals to her that there is life inside. And so I would say that sonogram is probably the biggest impactful thing that she could be doing.
The significance of that sonogram, like you said, it's the second most impactful thing. Like, why is that such a significant, obviously seeing life, but like, what is that? How does that change the story altogether?
These women come into the clinic, and this is the first time they're in their first trimester, and pregnancy is just an idea, right? So they're not feeling that baby move at all. Their tummies aren't growing at all. So it's literally a line on a stick. They might be kind of feeling nauseated, but it's not a life to them. A lot of people think, hey, it's just a ball of cells at this point, because most of our women come and they're in their first trimester. When they have that sonogram, it's the first time they meet their baby. And I think that is probably one of the most amazing things. It's a window into what God has created. They not only see their baby, they are hearing its heartbeat. And I cannot tell you, the heartbeat changes the hardest heart to the softest, most tearful woman you could, like, you wouldn't even believe the changes that, I mean, the sound of that heartbeat, it's faster than the mom's, right? So it's really fast, and they're like, wow. And so it's their first bonding moment between that mom and the child. And it is the most powerful thing that I just think it's cool that here God's already creating that heartbeat. So the heartbeat starts around 21 days. So think about that. That baby is the size of a little sesame seed, and it already has a heartbeat. And we're able to show the woman that. So at 21 days, this mom can hear that heartbeat, and most sonogram machines can pick that up. So that is huge. What God created, He's also using to change these women's minds. I mean, that really does blow me away.
So how many, I mean, after a woman comes in, she, has the decision age, she goes and gets the sonogram, or how many still choose abortion, or how many choose life? Like what's the timetable for that, and some of the nuances of that decision that get made?
When they come to our office for their first visits, it's about an hour and a half for a visit, okay? Hour and a half to 2 hours, I would say. But that process it depends on the woman. I love to sit here and say, oh, it changes immediately. A lot of times it does, like especially with that sonogram machine. So once women choose, this is statistics across the board, okay? So this is not just Thrive, this is across the board. Once women hear the heartbeat, 73% of abortion-minded women change their mind right then and there because they heard the heartbeat, which is why it's such a powerful tool, and why Texas, you have to have a sonogram and offer to listen to the heartbeat. A lot of states are bucking that law and have just banned it because, of course, the enemy and the abortion clinics know the power of a sonogram and the power of a heartbeat. So about 73% of women change their minds. And then the timetable is we're going to see that woman until she makes a decision, until she either gets in with an OB-GYN, which by that time she's pretty much made the decision to choose life once she's gotten her prenatal care and is in with a physician. But it can take anywhere from just a week where they come in the first time, they're not quite sure. We always have them back a second time. So we don't go by that first time. When they come in and they say, oh, I'm choosing life, hands down, that's an awesome sign for us. But she's also in a very safe place where she's had a chance to really be around life giving and truth. And then, but she still has to go back out into her own world. And that's where she's influenced by the father of the baby or her family or friends or her whatever her circumstances are. And so we want to get them back in within a week just to remind them of truth, to get that touch point and to make sure they're okay. So it could be that minute, but it could be weeks. So, and there's even times, like since we've been home, I've been able to talk to some of our clients and we didn't know, did they choose life or not? Because some choose not to call us back, or they don't answer the phone, or they don't respond. But this staying at home deal, everyone's answering their phones. It's like a captive audience, but the majority of the time it's within a week or 2 weeks that we find out.
Yeah, share a little bit about some of the stigma around the women or men that are walking through your doors. And I know that for myself, I just assumed like every single dude that walks through your doors is looking to coerce, his girlfriend into having an abortion. And I know you and I have talked about that, but like kind of destigmatize this on, who are these people? What is their life experience typically? Some of the stories that you've seen and people that you've ministered to.
I think there's a lot of stigma behind who these women and men are. I know for me before, it was a long time before I really, the stereotypes dispersed for me. A lot of people, these are the kind of the criteria where they stereotype clients as they're teenagers. I would say that's a pretty big stereotype. They're non-Christians, they're promiscuous, and they're cold and determined to kill their babies.
Yeah.
And I would say this, in some cases they're right. You know, teenagers, non-Christians, promiscuous, really abortion determined, and they don't care about the life of whatever's inside them, if they even consider it a life. I would say for sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's true, but for the most part, it isn't. So we see people that come in all walks of life, all economic statuses, all situations, and all ethnicities. And so the majority of women that are seeking out abortion are between 19 and 30. So yes, teenagers, but 19 and 30 is a good 60% of women who are seeking abortions, if not more. Yeah. I will say this though, in the last couple years, I have seen that change quite a bit. I would say we're seeing more married women with children that want abortions than really in the last year to 2 years that I've been doing this. We also see women of all religious backgrounds, but I would say the majority of the women we see do know the Lord. At some point in their life, they have been raised in the church, they have a religious background, they know who Jesus is, and they know that abortion is wrong. And I would say that would be over 50% of who comes into our clinic. They come in and they feel alone and they feel pressured. It might be by the father or the parents, like we've talked about before. They might be homeless or in a really bad financial situation. They might be worried because maybe they're not U.S. citizens, that they're going to be, if they go to the hospital or they seek out medical attention for a pregnancy, that they're going to be shipped out. I mean, there's so many stories. I would say, though, when I think of our women, I think of probably one of the sweetest stories in the Bible. And I think of this every time a woman comes in our doors, is I think about the woman at the well. Yes, we knew kind of what she was dealing with because Jesus informed us of what was going on with that she was promiscuous and had multiple partners, that she was rejected by others in town, that she was very lonely and she was very scared and very sad. And so, but we don't know a ton about her. But I would say what we do know is that no matter what was happening in her life, that she needed to be shown love and compassion and truth. And so I think that is truthfully when they come in, to think of them as that woman at the well, that they are coming because they are alone and they need love and compassion and they need to be shown truth. And that's what we want them to have when they come through our doors.
Right.
So for men, I would say the stigma with men is just what you said. They're all pro-abortion. They're all pushing their spouses. And I would say that that is the case. We have men come through our doors more often now than I think we ever have, and they don't want an abortion. And when they hear that heartbeat, they're the same way. They're like, that's my son or daughter. And so it does change the man's mind as well. Yes, there are men that are pushing abortion. I think that is definitely pretty typical. But then there are men that are like, no, I think this is wrong. I don't want her to have this, but I don't have a choice. So that's, that comes out of their mind. I don't have a say in this. It's her body. And so that's another thing that we're trying to change as we talk to these men, is you do have a say. They want you to have a say. Like, how pressure is that on this young 22-year-old girl when she's having to make this decision to end her baby's life, and they're saying, hey, it's your choice. The majority of these girls don't want that. They want someone to walk alongside them, with them, and love them and help them make the decision. They want to know that he's on board. And so I think that's kind of the deal with the guy side of things.
A lot of the people that I talked to early on, I mean, I considered myself pro-life, but didn't really understand sort of the nuances or some of the sophistication of embryology, or understanding all, just some of the stuff just was kind of whitewashed. It was just like, yeah, you're pro-life if you don't agree with abortion. And I was like, oh, I don't agree with abortion except for in these situations, and didn't even really understand some of the other nuances and issues and eugenics and all this stuff historically that's gone on. And so I've had lots of friends that have just said, well, why don't you get behind birth control? And initially I was kind of like, yeah, I'm behind birth control. Yeah, I'm totally bought into that. And the more that I've researched about birth control, the more I've gone like, oh, well, that's maybe why I'm not as behind birth control as I thought it was. Why doesn't Thrive offer birth control options to women to sort of stem the tide of these unexpected pregnancies?
Well, first and foremost, we have a medical director, phenomenal Christian man. He's been an OB-GYN for almost 40 years. He's been with Thrive for 20 years. And so we operate under his license. And so he doesn't want, and we don't provide any prescriptions of any kind to our women. So that's a whole nother level, so to speak, to provide birth control. And then going back to, as a Christian organization, there's a lot of questionable ideas about birth control. But bottom line is that we're trying to encourage a lifestyle of sexual abstinence. And I know that sounds old and, oh, yeah, abstinence. But kind of to back up, we also have a huge education program that goes into the community. So we're in public school systems. We taught over 6,000 students and teachers and educators and parents about life inside the womb, but we also talk to them about sexual health. And what that is sexual health is just a fancy terminology for, we're teaching them really what happens when you have multiple partners. So we're talking about STDs, we're talking about STIs, we're talking about protecting yourself. And we're encouraging these young people to realize that the only protection you have, not just for your physical self and protection against sexually transmitted diseases, is also for your heart and your mind, right? So we tend to not think that there's anything physical involved with talking about that, but that it all has to do, having sex at an early age, that it all has to do with who you are, like your heart, soul, mind, every part of you. So we're trying to encourage them that the only 100% way to, one, prevent pregnancy, but also to guard your heart and your mind and your body, is through abstinence. It's the only way. So you can sit here and throw birth control out there to everybody. Can I tell you how many women come into our clinic? They're on the pill, take it every day. They have an IUD. Oh, didn't work. Nothing is 100%. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't protect you against STDs and STIs and physically and emotionally. So we're not going to promote that.
So another thing that we hear a lot about is, just sort of people turning the, hey, don't choose abortion, choose adoption. So I'm curious, just your experience with the number of women that come into the Thrive Clinic, that get services, that choose life and that then choose to place for adoption, and kind of what that looks like.
So what we see, Bruce, is about 2%. It's not much.
Okay.
Now, we went through adoption with our first son. So our first son was adopted. And most women who choose adoption, they're not thinking that in that first trimester. That's still something they're processing through. We address that in our clinic. We are connected. We're not legally connected, but we're connected with a few adoption agencies in the area. So we have them come in and just be a resource for our women to talk about adoption. And really our lingo is make an adoption plan, because in all honesty, the stigma of adoption is not a good one, unfortunately, but it falls under parenting, right? So you have 3 choices: abortion, adoption, and carry and parent. But really adoption for those families is a way for them to parent those children, right? It's really one of their first parenting decisions. So it kind of falls under parenting to make that plan, but we don't see that a ton. So I would say 2%, but that doesn't mean later on when they're closer to delivery. That's usually the percentages of women that choose adoption. They don't decide that until closer to end of their second trimester, early third. So if that gives you an idea.
I think that's really helpful. There's definitely that sense of just like all these babies can be adopted and that ends the issue. And obviously with that few number of women choosing to place for adoption, it's not as simple as it's often made out to be.
That's a sacrifice, and that is a really hard decision for these young women to make, especially when they've just found out that they're pregnant, right? So like I said, it's just an idea. They haven't identified, okay, this is a life. So let's get to that point first. But then just, we do want to empower them to parent. So yes, we would much rather them choose adoption over taking the life of their unborn child. But we really want to encourage them to parent. And that's what we do, and empower them and come alongside them and every other, cliche that we can say, so they can feel like this is the best thing for my baby and the best thing for me.
Just kind of in wrapping up, anything that you would say, hey, if you want to, I think there are people that are so keen on ending abortion, but aren't willing to do much beyond just go into the voting booth. And even then aren't really sure that they're supporting a pro-life legislator that's actually going to do something and have the courage to abolish abortion or put some legislation forward, or if they're going to have enough support and so on. And so what are some of the things that come to mind for you as you just kind of think, hey, if you want to make an impact in this space, if you want to help women and men with unexpected pregnancies, if you want to help those who just feel like the sky is falling, here are some of the things that are helpful. Here are some of the things that are impactful to actually supporting and engaging with this group of people.
I think there are so many ways to get involved. So yes, kind of like what you said, I think you don't always know, hey, is that political figure really going to be pro-life or not? So do your research there. Absolutely. You can get involved with your local pregnancy center. So there's many here in the city of Dallas, but they're all over the world. They're all over everywhere. I would get involved there because those are your front lines. They are on the ground helping, and they know everything going on about the whole pro-life issues in our world. There's ways that you can get involved where you're supporting that ministry because they're all counting on the support of providers. So Thrive and most ministries are 100% funded by individuals, churches, corporations. And so if you want to write that check, if your gift is writing a check, that's a wonderful way to support them. Volunteer, give diapers. I know that my sons, who are teenagers, know all about the pro-life movement, and we have their youth and their friends. We've been able to host in our home fetal development presentations. So Thrive has an education program in the communities, like I said. I've had their small groups over and educated these teenagers in small groups. Have us at your youth group. Host us in your homes to bring attention. I mean, there's so many ways. I do think it's important to learn the apologetics of pro-life. I would also say, if you're a Watermark member, getting involved with Life Initiative, that is a great place to start. They offer classes and community help right within Life Initiative. And then I tell you where I get a lot of my information is from Live Action. Follow them on social media, get their email updates. They will inform you of every legislative action going on in the United States and in the world. You can follow us on social media. We do updates all the time. We have stories. We have ways you can get involved. I would say one of the biggest preventative measures with us being in the schools is to get on your school boards, to get on what's called a SHAC. It's a committee that all Texas school districts have to approve their sex education. And so that's one of the ways Thrive has gotten involved, is just going before city councils and being involved in those schools. So we're getting these kids when they're 12 years old to educate them that life starts when that baby has its DNA, which is at conception. And so those are great preventative ways. So if you have kids in schools, private schools, public schools, call us. We can get those ONO programs in there. But jump in on those SHAC committees, or the SHAC. They're just so important. And find out what's going on in your school districts. That's really, really important.
Hey, I'm excited about what's ahead for Thrive. Obviously, I've been doing great work for a long, long time and continuing to lead here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And so I just want to wrap up by encouraging you all to reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram with any thoughts or questions you had during tonight's show. You can also reach out by email at thelifeinitiative@watermark.org. And if unexpected pregnancy is a part of your story or a friend's story, you can email pregnant@watermark.org to get help. Or obviously Thrive's clinics. And so again, if abortion is part of your story and you're looking for healing and freedom, reach out to us, healing@watermark.org. We'd love to connect. Meredith, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Everybody have a great week of worship. Thanks for being with us.